I'm Brittany, this is Hualian, and welcome to Gaywatch, where we watch gay things. Today we are talking about Heaven Official's Blessing. All together, all at once. This is going to be a total mishmash of a discussion. This will involve, I don't know what it's going to involve actually. I have all 8 volumes immediately to my left, just in case anybody has a reference or a connection or a hey, did you catch this in volume whatever. I have everything right here. I also thought it would be kind of interesting if you guys wanted me to. I could go back and reread their first meeting to see if MXTX put in anything particularly like mean in terms of foreshadowing. It's on its own because it's only like a few pages long actually. It starts low on page 87. There's a page of art, and then I think it ends on like page 93 or 95, something like that. It's not terribly long. So if we wanted to reread that, always a possibility. And then I've only really got like a couple of notes so far because the series is so big and so long that only a real sit down and reread will really unearth everything that MXTX was trying to do and really give you a sense of the scope of the whole thing, as opposed to when you're experiencing it for the first time over the course of a year. It's all a bit huge and unwieldy. So I am actually going to be relying on you guys for quite a bit of this. As I was just skimming over everything today, I only really noticed one major like thematic thing. At the end of volume 2, there was, which was my favorite ending to a volume until I think maybe volume 4? Volume 5? Who knows? I'll have to keep a running tally on my reread whenever that inevitably happens. But at the end of volume 2, there's that amazing quote from the state preceptor, of all people, about, it's literally the second to last page, so I can get to it real quick. When humans ascend, they are still human, and when they fall, they are still human. And I loved that right out of the box, and then catch me not realizing that that was ultimately like the point that they make with the villain of this entire series. They wind up treating White No Face with a tremendous amount of humanity, and that ties all the way back in to a quote at the end of volume 2. They treat everybody with a tremendous amount of humanity, regardless of where they rose, where they fall, and all of that. So I knew that was a point that she made at the end of volume 2. I did not kind of realize that that was the point of everything in a big way. This series, for all of the ground that it covers, makes more than one major point, obviously. But that's a big one, and for someone like me who tries to be a little bit more empathetic every day, that means a lot to me personally. That's my immediate and biggest takeaway from this entire thing. And so I went back. Of course, one of the things I did immediately was I went back and I revisited that memorable moment at the end of volume 2, and I was like, well, doesn't that just sum up everything? And I definitely clocked that. And then I also had a question. My first question: has anyone put together a Heaven Official's Blessing timeline? Because this jumps around within Hualian's timeline so much. I'd be really curious to see, even if it's just a Hualian and Huacheng timeline of events. Has anybody done that? Is there like a link to that anywhere? Because I would be deeply curious to see it all laid out chronologically speaking. I have no idea if that's a thing. but I would love to see it to get a sense of how everything played out, I guess, in general cause and effect rather than hopping all around everywhere. There is one online. I would love to track it down because, like, someone had to have done it, right? I would be kind of amazed if someone hadn't at least just made a list. It doesn't have to be any kind of fancy timeline or anything. But if anybody has one, if anyone can track one down over the course of this stream or afterwards, please drop it. I would hop on that in a heartbeat. Those are the only two things, plus the reread of the first meeting. Those are the only two things I really had. This is largely a discussion that's going to be up to you guys. Do we want to, let me scroll up and see if I can see anyone's responses. Do we want to reread the first meeting in the bridal carriage thing? Do we want to reread that real quick? I'll see if I can scroll up and catch people's. But of course, God knows my ADD means I can't find anything ever, so. Oh, we should definitely look at, yeah, I see someone suggested looking at name meanings in the back. That's definitely a good idea. I'll look at the one for volume 8. That's buried way deep over here, but has one of my favorite covers. I figured out that of all of the stunningly gorgeous covers on every single one of these volumes, I do have my top 3 favorites. Volume 1, Volume 4, wherever I can find it around here, because, I mean, listen, I'm just really easy, all right? Of course, Volume 4 is going to be one of my favorites. I'm a hopeless romantic shipping queer fangirl. Like, duh. Just duh. But I mean, also, it's just stunning, okay? It is also legitimately a stunning cover, and I will die on that hill. And also, 8, actually. Volumes 1, 4, and 8 have my favorite cover art in a series that is full of nothing but banger cover art. So let's see. So I'm going to write down that we're going to do the name guide in a second. Also the first conversation between Xilian and Jun Wu. Yeah, if you can get me the volume and page number, I'm assuming it's volume 1, obviously. But if you can give me the page number for that, and it's not too terribly long, I will totally do that. So, name guide, Jun Wu, first convo. Let me see. I'm just scrolling to catch up with chat, see if anything else happened. Yeah? Okay. So we are going to take a quick second to reread the first meeting, and then we'll give, that'll also give that one person a second to find the first conversation with Jun Wu. And so this is legit, volume 1, in the middle towards the end of page 87 is with the whole, it's the end of the buildup of things have surrounded the bridal sedan, and Hua Cheng is actually approaching the thing and all of that. This cuts like right to when he shows up, right? Okay. And the first Jun Wu convo is on page 29 of volume 2. Thank you, Chris. Volume 2, page 29. We will do that right after this. And then we'll dive into the name guide and see how much I need to scream at her about that. Alrighty. In the middle of page 87 of volume 1. Around the bridal sedan, corpses were strewn all over the ground. The silk-band Royer had already strangled every wolf and binu that had lunged forward. It came flying back, gently wrapping itself back onto Shilian's wrist on its own. Shilian sat within the sedan quietly, surrounded by the infinite darkness and the rustling of the sea of trees. All of a sudden, everything fell quiet. The sound of wind, the sound of the sea of trees, the howling and roaring of demonic creatures all sank into a deadly silence in an instant, as if they were afraid of something. And then he heard a very soft chuckle. It sounded like a man, but also a youth. Shilian sat poised and quiet. The silk-band Royer was quietly encircling his hand, ready to strike at a moment's notice. If whoever had come showed a trace of killing aura, it would instantly wildly strike back with 10 times the power. Yet unexpectedly, what came wasn't the anticipated attack or any murderous intent, but something else. And I feel like if I was one to write in my books, and I'm not, I would be like underlining the phrase something else like 20 times and circling it and putting little hearts around it. Yeah. The curtain of the bridal sedan was lightly lifted, and from underneath the bright red veil, Shilian saw the person had extended a hand to him. The fingers were well defined. A red I'm fine. I hate her, but I'm fine. A red string was tied on the third finger, and on that long, slender, fair hand, it looked like a bright and colorful affinity knot. Should he give his hand or no? Shilian maintained his composure. He hadn't decided yet. Should he continue to sit tall and still, or pretend to be a bride who was frightened and at a loss, dodging back? The owner of that hand was rather patient, however, and incredibly well-mannered. Shilian didn't move, and so that hand didn't move either, seeming to be waiting for his response. A moment later, as if something had taken control of him, Shilian reached out. He rose to his feet, ready to push aside the curtain to descend the sedan, but the man had already moved first, lifting the red curtain for him. This man who had come grasped his hand, but didn't squeeze too hard, as if he was afraid of hurting him, somehow giving the impression of taking the utmost care. Maybe this was a bad idea. Maybe this was a bad idea. Maybe I just have bad ideas and I should shut up. What the fuck? Where even am I? Shilian had his head bowed and let the man guide him slowly out of the sedan. Below the veil, Shilian could see by his feet the dead body of a wolf that the silk-band Royer had strangled. An idea came to him, and Shilian lightly tripped, falling forward with an alarmed gasp. Oh my god, we did the whole fall out of the thing? The man immediately reached out and caught him. Shilian also twisted his hand to catch the man's helping arm and felt something cold. It turned out the man was wearing a pair of silver vambraces around his wrists. The vambraces were exquisitely beautiful, with primitive decorative patterns. Maple leaves, butterflies, and savage beasts were engraved upon them, quite mysterious, and quite unlike anything from the Central Plains, more akin to the ancient artifacts of foreign tribes. The vambraces appeared polished and refined, locked around the man's wrists. Icy cold silver and fair white hands. Both were without a trace of life, but carried an evil, killing aura. Couldn't have been too much of a killing aura, though, otherwise Royer would have struck. Shilian's trip and fall earlier was a feint. He had a mind to test this man who'd come. Royer had been circling languidly inside the large, expansive sleeves of his wedding robes, ready to strike at a moment's notice. However, the man only took his hand and guided him forward. Lian purposely walked extremely slowly. This was because, 1, he couldn't see the path clearly with the veil on, and 2, he wanted to stall for time. Yet this other person matched his pace and walked slowly along with him, the other arm coming around to support him every now and then, as if afraid Lian would trip again. Hello, metaphor. I'm angry at her again. Hello, fucking metaphor. Is that not a metaphor for the entire... he's gonna go at his pace. He's going to go at Lian's pace and no faster, and he will just walk Lian through whatever, always ready. Stop it. Stop that bullshit right now. What is that? Middle of page 90? Yeah, middle-ish, endish of page 90 of volume 1. You're fucking... okay. No matter how high on his guard Lian was, to be treated this way, he couldn't help but think, if he was a real groom, then he'd genuinely be a most gentle and considerate one. Like, I'm rocketing back to first impressions, because I saw this first. This is in volume 1, so I actually saw this play out in the Donghua first, right? And then I got to read it. But specifically in reading it, she's telling you right here that, like, Roye is anticipating something evil. Or something murderous, right? Something dangerous. And that just, like, never happens. And actually, he's being quite protective, gentle, and gentlemanly, and considerate, and patient, actually. She's already telling you everything about Huachang. Versus when it comes to how he presents and what he seems to be versus what he really is, which is just a huge simp. So, like, this is impressive and infuriating, and I just lost my spot because I got too angry. Okay, hang on. Oh, no, there I am. Then he suddenly heard an exceedingly soft clinking sound. With every step the two took, that sound would ring crisply. Just as he was mulling over what that sound could be, there was suddenly the low, suppressed growls of wild beasts from all around. Wild wolves. Lian jerked slightly, and the silk band Roye abruptly snapped tight around his wrist. Yet unexpectedly, before he could do anything, the man who was holding his hand softly tapped the back of that hand like he was comforting him, telling him not to worry. The two taps were so soft they could practically be called gentle. Lian was slightly taken aback, but the low growling was already suppressed. When Lian listened closely, he suddenly realized that these wild wolves weren't growling, but whimpering. It was clearly the whimpering of beasts that had reached the peak of fear and could not move while they struggled before death. Now his curiosity for who this man was grew even stronger. He wanted to lift the veil to look first and worry about everything else later, but he knew that wasn't the best course of action at the moment, so he could only peek through the crack below the red covering, his view limited, and miss the larger picture. Something really jumps out at me about missing the larger picture at the moment. The only thing he saw was the lower hem of a vividly red robe. Below the red robe were a pair of black leather boots, walking languidly. Those black leather boots were wrapped tight around long, slender legs, looking mightily beautiful as they walked. On the sides of the black boots there dangled two fine silver chains, and with every step the silver chains would sway, clinking and crinkling, sounding extremely pleasant to the ear. The steps were nonchalant but sprightly, much like those of a youth. However, his every step was also confident, like there was nothing that could stand in his way. If anyone dared to block him, he'd rip them to pieces. Because of this, Lian couldn't quite say just exactly who this character was. Just as he was deep in thought, something hauntingly white on the ground suddenly intruded on his vision. It was a skull. Xilian's steps faltered for a moment. He could immediately tell that the way the skull was placed was amiss. This was clearly a point in some magic formation, and if moved, the entire enchantment would probably attack this spot in an instant. But judging by that youth's steps, it was as if he didn't notice there was anything here at all. Xilian was just considering whether he should warn him when he heard the crisp sound of a tragic crack. The youth stepped down and instantly crushed the skull to dust. And then, as if he sensed nothing, he walked over, stepping through that mound of dust indifferently. Xilian was speechless. With just one step, he crushed the entire enchantment into a mound of wasted dust. Just then, the youth's step paused. Xilian tensed, wondering if he was about to act, but the youth only stopped for a moment before continuing to guide Xilian along. After a couple of steps, suddenly there was a pitter-patter from above, as if beads of raindrops were beating down on the surface of an umbrella. Turns out that youth had opened an umbrella and raised it over both of their heads. Although it wasn't the time for it, Xilian couldn't help but praise inwardly that he really was quite thoughtful. But at the same time, he was also very curious. Is it raining? On the mystic black mountain within the vast wilderness, somewhere deep in the far distant ranges, there came the long howls of the wolves. Perhaps it was because a slaughter had just occurred on the mountain, but the faint scent of blood was still permeating the cold, frigid air. Also, can I tell you that as far as, it's meet cutes in a sense, because technically, obviously, meet cutes are legitimately the very first time one character meets another, right? But this essentially is the meet cute for the story and the way that it's told. This is the first time we see them in the same place together on the page, so that functions as the meet cute for this. This is gonna go down for me personally as just one of the best, one of the greatest meet. This is a moment and a half. This is such a beautiful, elaborate, thematically relevant, foreshadowing, layered, meaningful, drawn out, beautiful, yet kind of horrifying, because again, fitting thematically, moment that it's just stunning. It's it reminds me of a non-musical version of something you would find in Phantom of the Opera. Really. It's almost the title fucking song from Phantom of the Opera. When she sees him for the first time. In terms of the height of drama that we're talking about, that's the only thing that really comes to mind in terms of the glamour and the meaning behind it all. The over the topness, but it fits perfectly. It's just so good and so well thought out. And it's such an image. It's such a visual. That's part of it. It's such a fucking visual. Obviously, there's a reason why they chose that moment for the front fucking cover. Because it's such a moment. It's so visually stunning. Even in just your own brain. It's ridiculous. She's amazing. Where was I? We were on the last page. It's just at the end of this page here. Everything about this situation was eerie to the extreme, but the youth held him in one hand and the umbrella in the other as he walked leisurely on, appearing for no reason to be bewitchingly romantic and deeply affectionate. For no reason. Appearing for no reason to be bewitchingly romantic and deeply affectionate. For no reason. Appearing for no reason. Appearing for no reason. Appearing for no reason. None whatsoever. I fucking hate her. What reason do we know about at this point? He has no reason. No reason to be bewitchingly romantic and deeply affectionate. See, this is why I have no qualm with adverbs. If you poke around, if you know writers or you are a writer yourself and you poke around general like writing knowledge, wisdom, advice, and all that jazz, there can be a bit of a debate, not as hot as it used to be, but there's still a bit of a debate around adverbs and how frequently you should use them. There is essentially the camp that says you should use them so sparingly that you practically never use them. And then there are the other people who are like, it's fine, it's whatever. I'm kind of in the middle towards skewing to it's fine. As long as you use them well, which is to say you don't use them redundantly with whatever you're describing, then you can feel free to use them. If it's not just doubling down on what we already know about the thing, like would be a good example. Like toxically poisonous, right? If you're going to describe something like that, we already know that poison is toxic. You don't need to tell us that it's toxically poisonous. That is redundant. We do not need to know that. You're just repeating information. That would be a poor use of an adverb. But if you use the adverb as an opportunity to describe another characteristic of said poison that we could not tell from the inherent definition of poison, then that would be a good use of an adverb. And I love me a good use of an adverb. And here's this bitch really painting a picture of not romantic, bewitchingly romantic. Fucking bewitchingly romantic. That's this entire scene in a nutshell. It is bewitchingly romantic. And then deeply affectionate, because we all know with Huacheng, it's not about affection. It is about deep affection. It is the deepest fucking affection that you could possibly fathom. So like, of course it's going to be described as deeply affectionate. And then in this instance, you can't do this like all the time on every page, but this is a great opportunity to double up on your adverbs here with bewitchingly romantic and deeply affectionate. Yes. The translators and MXTX, mwah, beautiful fucking moment here. Yes. That was a tangent. The strange shower came strangely and ended strangely as well. It wasn't long before the dripping sound of raindrops hitting the umbrella ended, and the youth also came to a stop. He seemed to have put away the umbrella while at the same time he finally let go of Shilian's hand and moved one step closer. The hand that had been holding his own this entire way softly folded a corner of the veil and slowly lifted it upward. Shilian had been waiting for this moment the entire time. He stood still, watching as the clinging red curtain was slowly pulled up. The silk band shot out. It wasn't because the youth exuded a killing aura, but rather because he must be apprehended. Seize him first and talk later. Yet unexpectedly, when the silk band Royer flew out and carried with it a blast of wind, that bright red veil left the youth's hand, fluttering up, then down. Before Shilian had the chance to see the remnant shadow of that red-robed youth, Royer had shot through him. The youth shattered into thousands of silver butterflies, scattering into a breeze of silver twinkling stars. I'm gonna turn into a writer again for a second, because what the fuck is that sentence? Okay, first of all, we don't know that he can do this. This is how we're introduced to the butterflies and this ability of his, okay? The youth shattered into thousands of silver butterflies, scattering into a breeze of silver twinkling stars. This is such effective prose. Like, just in general, I have precious few notes from a writer perspective in terms of prose. And the fact that this is a translation from Chinese to English and my notes are few is just fucking staggering. That's already impressive. But then you have these particularly shining moments in the prose, like this bullshit, and it's just ridiculous. It is obscene, you might say. I need them to translate everything, basically. I realize that, they're not perfect and some things get left out and all that. Yes, but on the whole, I am very impressed as obviously an American person reading the English language. I am extremely impressed overall by the job that they are able to do. And it is a very difficult job that they do. We were right at the end of it. Okay, while it wasn't the time for it, after Xilian had backed a couple of steps away, he couldn't help but sigh in awe. The sight truly was as beautiful as a fantastic dream. Just then, one silver butterfly errantly flew past his eyes. When he tried to look closer, however, that single silver butterfly fluttered twice around him before joining the whirl of butterflies, melting into a part of the silver that enveloped the sky as they fluttered their wings to fly into the night. What do you mean? I can't really hit anything anymore. I wish I had... It's just gorgeous. It's just beautiful. God. And even when I talk about like notes on the prose, it's literally just occasionally doing a pet peeve of mine. I think every so often when somebody speaks, there's a descriptor of the way that they're speaking that is already evident by their by what they're saying. So, broad example, so someone's like, "I hate you," and then the tag will be, "He said angrily." Like, we can infer that he is saying it angrily most of the time. There are times when it's not readily apparent, in which case that would warrant it, but it's a very nitpicky prose thing of mine, and they don't even do that too terribly often, I don't think. And that's literally the only note that comes to mind, in terms of like how much this feels just like a naturally English prose. And I'm furious at that fucking string being mentioned on like page 1 of when Huachang shows up. Shut up. Just shut up. Shut up, MXTX. I can't fucking handle you anymore. Okay. Volume 2, page 29, for the first conversation between Xilian and Jun Wu. This one I really imagine is just going to make me want to fling my book out the window. And I will fall back on my usual threat. I have a window right here. It's open and ready. Sure, there are some squirrels in the tree right next to my window, but they'll be fine. They'll be fine. If a book goes flying past their heads, it's fine. Another thing about book 1, let's see. Reading Nanfeng and Fu Yao's introduction on page 40. Okay, hang on. That's volume 1. Page 40. Nanfeng. Fu Yao. Thank you, Chris. What is on... We're just like rereading volume 1 today. That's what this is turned into. Page 156. Okay, so we've picked up volume 2 for a second, and then we'll go back to volume 1 for page 40 and page 156. So we've done the first meeting. Okay, cool. Give me a quick second. Let me find... I'm on page 29. Let me find the right... There we go. There's Jun Wu. Here we are. Okay. So this is the middle of page 29 on volume 2. This is Xilian's first conversation with Jun Wu. With everyone now finally cleared out, Xilian slowly turned around. Jun Wu descended from the throne. Hands clasped behind his back, he came before Xilian. Crimson Rain sought flower, the scimitar a Ming. Xi Lian was like a cat picked up by the scruff of his neck, and he involuntarily straightened. So, what is going on? Jun Wu questioned. Xi Lian looked at him, then suddenly kneeled. Before Xi Lian's knees touched the floor, Jun Wu reached out and held his elbow, preventing him from kneeling. He sighed. Shenlei. Xi Lian straightened once more, his head bowed. I'm sorry. Jun Wu watched him. Are you acknowledging your wrongs? I am, Xi Lian replied. Then why not tell me what wrong you are acknowledging, Jun Wu said. Xi Lian was silent, and Jun Wu shook his head. I did not think you would know. This already takes on just a fucking creepy air about it. The Heavenly Emperor inclined his head, gesturing for Xi Lian to follow, and the two walked slowly toward the chambers behind the hall. As they walked, Jun Wu, with his hands clasped in front, commented, Shenlei is all grown up now. Naturally, Xi Lian didn't dare answer that comment. Jun Wu continued, 800 years ago, when I sent you down, I told you to keep in periodic communication with me so you would not have to roll in the mud all by yourself. But once you left, there was not a word from you for 800 years, and all the while you unnecessarily tormented yourself down below. You've been ascended for some time now, but not once have you reported to the Palace of Divine Might. If anyone else was this impertinent, the Palace of Ling Wen would have censured them directly. That does seem a little bit, double, not like a double-edged sword, well, for lack of a better, like, two-faced? Like, there's a bit of a, on one hand, if I remember correctly, when first reading this, it's like, oh, he wanted you to, like, speak up, he wanted to be able to help you out, and then you just ghosted him for 800 years. But, like, on reread, this feels very like, I wanted to keep my noose around you, and you just disappeared, and so I wasn't able to, it feels more oppressive on a second read. Of course, Xi Lian's I'm sorry earlier wasn't directed to this matter, and Jun Wu was aware of this also. He added, if your apology was for those few sword attacks, then let it go. You said it yourself. I gotta go. I don't want to fathom anything anymore. I have to go. I have to leave. I have to not be here. What the... Okay. Okay, hang on. All right. Not that I was expecting this live stream to be terribly monetizable anyway, and fortunately, not that I have to really care about being monetizable because I have a Patreon. So what the fuck do you mean? You cannot be serious. You cannot expect me to say those words out fucking loud. And then he just... Okay. All right. You said it yourself. All is forgotten after a stabbing. And that's something that Xi Lian said after, because you said it yourself, Jun Wu says. Oh, I don't like this. I don't like this anymore. I don't want to play this. I hear my mom's calling me. I gotta go home. Because then Shilian smiled wryly. How could I forget? She's fucking insane. She's insane. There are no more words with which we can describe the sheer unhingedness of this woman. Anyway. Then look to the future, Jun Wu replied quietly. There is still much we need you for. Shilian rubbed his forehead. Shanlei is but a lowly scrap immortal without power. There is no need for me. I only hope not to be a burden. Why deprecate yourself so? That's fucking rich coming from... The whole point is... I'm fine. Did you not perform splendidly in these last 2 cases? Jun Wu said. Except I may have offended General Pei, Shilian sighed ruefully. Mingguang is fine. I will keep an eye on him. You do not need to worry. However, Jun Wu turned around. Tell me, what kind of extraordinary character did you engage with when you descended this time? Yeah, these 2 cases that you orchestrated? Yeah, this everything that you orchestrated? BT dubs? That? Yeah. Shilian raised his hand. My lord, I swear I did nothing. Just one day by chance, I encountered an interesting young man on the road, and we spent some time together. I didn't think much of it. Jun Wu nodded. Chance encounter, young man. Supreme Ghost King. Shanlei, surely you are aware what the consequences would be if Mingguang was to question you further, and you confessed to this in front of the other officials? No one would believe you. Shanlei knows, Shilian replied woefully, so I am grateful for my lord's timely intervention. My lord, you're not actually going to interrogate me, are you? I wouldn't collude with the ghost realm. These are absurd concerns. Naturally, I know you would not intentionally collude with the ghost realm. Intentionally, Jun Wu said. I am grateful for my lord's trust, Shilian replied. The superior and subordinate vibes, like... It's just bonkers that when you don't know who Jun Wu is, Jun Wu seems gracious for someone in such a high standing, right? You're like, oh, okay, for a supreme leader, he's actually quite down to earth, and so you don't, you brush off all of the ways in which he's treated like a supreme leader and the ways in which other people essentially cower before him as a sign of respect. You kind of disregard that. But then on reread, it seems super creepy. However, with things thus, it may no longer be appropriate to send you to investigate an urgent matter that I have on hand. That alone is really manipulative. He's dangling it in front of him. It's like, there's something that needs to be done, but with things the way they are, it might not be appropriate to send you on this thing that I could send you on because of things that you have done. It just doesn't... What is it? Shilian inquired. At this time, the 2 of them reached the chamber behind the great hall, separated from the main hall by a large mural. The front depicted a golden palace towering above a sea of clouds, radiant and brilliant. The back of the mural was another view, depicting mountains and valleys spanning over an enormous distance. Gazing over the expanse of the painting, one could see many tiny pearls embedded on this giant map, glinting like stars. Each one of those pearls embedded on the map represented the location of a temple of divine might, built in the mortal realm. 800 years earlier, when Jun Wu brought the newly ascended Xilian to these inner halls, the twinkling stars on the mural weren't as dense, but now the shimmering jewels seemed to fill one's vision, overwhelming in their radiance. Jun Wu stood before the mural and pointed at a place in the east. 7 days ago, many saw with their own eyes a dragon of fire suddenly soaring into the sky from the deep mountains in this area. Xilian's face grew serious. Jun Wu, with one hand behind his back, used the other to softly rap on a place on the mural. That dragon of fire lasted for 2 incense time before burning out. In that time, many witnessed the sight, but not a single person was injured. Do you know what that means? The spell for the ascending fire dragon emits intense flames that do not harm, but can be seen by many due to the vast expanse of its display. It's a call for help, Xilian replied. Correct. It was a distress signal, and it came from a heavenly official, Jun Wu said. And it's no ordinary call for help. It's one of desperation, Xilian added. The flames of the ascending fire dragon spell were extremely intense and needed to be strictly controlled to avoid causing any harm. Those strict controls would most assuredly drain an immense amount of a heavenly official's of a heavenly official's spiritual power. If the casting official was not careful, their powers could easily backfire, and they would destroy themselves in the process. This is very curious. Unless they were absolutely desperate, very few heavenly officials would take such a risk. A sighting of this nature meant that a heavenly official had fallen into grave peril, with no other options left. Okay. All right. I'm almost surprised that didn't come back several volumes later. This specific thing, I mean. The sentiment certainly happens. Are there any officials whose whereabouts are currently unknown? Xilian asked. The Benyue Pass was not the only reason all officials were summoned back to court. The main purpose was to use this chance to investigate everyone's whereabouts. Aside from those who usually do not show, like the Rainmaster and the Earthmaster, even those who couldn't make it back reported in. Xilian contemplated for a moment, then speculated, maybe it wasn't any of the officials from this term? Maybe it's one of the retired officials? If that is the case, then I'm afraid our search parameters will need to expand. Many retired officials lost contact with the heavens long ago. It would be impossible to deduce who could be the one in peril, Jun Wu said. I'm just double checking to see how long it is. I think it's just another couple of pages. Hang on. One moment, please. Yeah. It's just another, 2 pages. Cool. Alrighty. 8 pages more? To me, it looks like it's just another couple. I mean, it depends on how you're counting pages. That's true. Technically, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But that's just one side. So it's not too terribly long. Okay. So this was probably why Ling Wen and many of the civil officials had dark circles under their eyes and walked with such weak steps. Yeah, 39, page 39. They were working constantly on this case. No wonder they couldn't break away to investigate the whereabouts. No wonder they couldn't break away to investigate the whereabouts of that boy with the human face disease from Mount Yujun. We're just too busy. Why, I tell you, we're maxed out. Can't spare a single official. We could not possibly investigate this potentially really horrifying thing infecting this boy somewhere. Nope, can't do it. Just too busy. We're just overwhelmed with the paperwork, you see. There's just so much going on with all the heavenly officials. We're even down one because he's sending up a flare. Couldn't possibly. I got so incensed I knocked myself clear off trajectory. Where the hell am I? Oh my god. No wonder they couldn't break away to investigate the whereabouts of that boy with the human face disease. That's so... Ugh. Okay. Shilian asked, to corner a heavenly official to the point where they would use such a self-destructive spell, there must be great evil at work. Are there any demonic gatherings or lairs in that area? There are, Jun Wu replied, and very close by. Do you know of Ghost City? Shilian thought about it and replied, I've heard of it. Ghost City was the most prosperous place within the Ghost Realm, situated right at the crossroads of the mortal and the Ghost Realms. It was where all manner of ghosts gathered in swarms to conduct trade and exchange, and it was complete pandemonium. Some cultivators of a certain skill level would venture there to do business or seek information. Sometimes there would even be heavenly officials in disguise, touring the city for curiosity's sake, or other unspeakable reasons. Once in a while, there would also be those who'd entered by mistake, and they would either be eaten alive or scared half to death. Since ancient times, although not as ancient as Shilian, there had always been many tales of Ghost City in the mortal realm. Shilian remembered one of the stories had a man traveling at night who saw a bustling market before him decked out with large red lanterns and colorful signs. He entered the market in high spirits, but found that everyone around him wore a mask, and if they were not cloaked as such, then they were extremely ugly. Very curious. He didn't think deeply on it and bought a bowl of noodles and sat down to eat, but as he dug into his food and ate, the food didn't feel right. When he looked closely, the noodles were actually squirming strands of hair. Oh, Jesus. I had forgotten that. What a lovely reminder. Shilian brought himself back to the present, and Jun Wu continued. After that pillar of fire appeared, I immediately sent officials to investigate the area, but there was no evidence of anything, so it is very possible that they moved to Ghost City. However, the heavenly realm and the ghost realm have always drawn very clear borders, and without enough proof, we cannot intrude on Ghost City, which is why I need someone to descend in secret this time and investigate. We can't alert the enemy and have them move again, Shilian said. Is that why this couldn't be discussed openly at the Great Hall with everyone? To prevent information leaks? Here, I'm handing you this potential reason as to why this has to be super secretive and you could only explain it to me only. Therefore, all you have to do is confirm my theory and I'll totally buy it as an explanation. Ever since I learned about that tactic, man, it's a really common tactic. When you offer an explanation to someone and they're just like, yeah, sure, absolutely, that's totally right. Yeah, that's exactly what you were. Yes. You're handing someone their own alibi. And then all a shitty, miserable, guilty person has to do is just confirm your own theory. It's a very sneaky way to worm your way around things. And ever since I noticed it, I'm like, I'm fine. Correct, Jun Wu replied. That's all he says. That's all he says. Yeah, sure. 100%. Absolutely. Then, my lord, pray give Shanlei your command. You are the first candidate I originally had in mind, Jun Wu said. But for this, it may be inconvenient for you to go. How would it be inconvenient? Shilian asked. First, the east is guarded by Lang Chenchu. If you should go, you would have to cooperate with him, Jun Wu said. Shilian responded, that would not be a problem. Please rest assured. Second, Jun Wu continued, do you know in whose territory Ghost City is seated? Shilian was slightly taken aback. Is it Huachang? Jun Wu nodded slowly, and Shilian's guess was confirmed, but then something else came to mind. That distress pillar of fire blazed up 7 days ago. Coincidentally, it was 7 days ago when Huachang left Puqi's shrine. The timing was too perfect. Could there be a connection between the two events? It would seem you have a rather good relationship with him, which is fine, Jun Wu said. The only thing I am concerned about is whether he is involved. If this makes it awkward for you, then do not force yourself. If you have any other suggestions or anyone you would nominate, do let me know. However, Xulian still said, let me go. I don't think Crimson Rainsought Flower is a disingenuous person. Jun Wu looked at him. Shenlei, I know you are very capable and know what you are doing. However, I also know that you always think the best of everyone. Jun Wu shook his head. I should not comment on the friends you make, but I will say this. Be careful of Huacheng. Hearing this, Xulian bowed his head slightly, keeping his eyes down and saying nothing. He should have responded with, yes, my lord, as he should have been able to say yes with ease by that point. Yet for some reason, he really didn't want to say that particular yes. I'm sorry, there's something about the topic of Huacheng being the first crack in the chorus. And by that I mean, biblically speaking, there was the chorus of angels, singing to the heavens, and Lucifer, stopped for 2 seconds. Basically, this is a generalization. Stopped for 2 seconds to be like, what? And the first crack in the chorus, and then that led to everything else, right? That's what this reminds me of. This is like it's the first time he doesn't just want to say yes to Jun Wu. He doesn't just want to go along with whatever Jun Wu is saying. He doesn't just want to please Jun Wu every single time. It's the first time he kind of wants to withhold a yes, and it's because of something related to Huacheng. That's interesting to me, anyway. Be especially careful of that wicked blade of his, Jun Wu added. What do you mean? Xulian asked. The scimitar Aming is a cursed blade, a blade of misfortune. To forge such an evil weapon would require terrifyingly cruel sacrifice and Sorry, I'm stumbling over the slander against my child. This is not, I have a hard time reading ultimately just the wrong information about, like, sacrifice, sure, yeah. You had to sacrifice an eye to make it. But that's not what we're being led to believe here with this whole terrifyingly cruel, sacrifice kind of thing. I can't, yeah, no. Do not touch it, and do not let it touch you either. If you do, the consequences will be unimaginable, Jun Wu replied. Bitch. Xulian couldn't tell where his sudden surge of confidence came from. But inwardly he thought, Senlong probably wouldn't strike at me with a blade. He has known Huacheng for like a few days at this point, and that has already been enough to start subtly laying the groundwork to not be Jun Wu's just puppet and go along with, stop it. Still, he responded, Shenlei understands. Jun Wu nodded. I will of course be at ease knowing that you have taken this case. Since this does not make things awkward for you, then it is ideal. Nonetheless, going on this mission alone may be too much. Are there any officials you would like to join you? It doesn't matter, Xulian said after some thought, but preferably someone easy to get along with. It'd be best if they're powerful too, so they can lend me some spiritual power sometimes. Jun Wu smiled. You disqualified both Nanyang and Xuanzhen with the first condition. That was true. No one could say that Feng Shen and Mu Qing of today were personalities that were easy to get along with. Xulian started chuckling too. How are things between the three of you? Have you spoken with them yet? Jun Wu asked. The Heavenly Emperor himself never entered the communication array and thus was naturally unaware of the buzzing chit-chat that went on among the officials. We spoke a few words, Xulian replied. It's been so many years, and yet you have only spoken a few words, Jun Wu inquired. Ah, yes, I heard that when you ascended this time, you destroyed many of your fellow officials' palaces, one of which was Nanyang's. Shi Lian argued back, I paid back the debt, all 8,880,000 merits, and for this, I need to thank my lord for giving me the opportunity to go to Mount Yujun. Thank Nanyang, Junwu replied. I heard Ling Wen say it was he who privately approached her and said there was no need for you to pay back the reconstruction cost. Shi Lian was stunned. I didn't know about this at all. No wonder those 8,880,000 merits were so easily repaid if it turned out that so much of it had already been intentionally forgiven. Yet at the time, it was the palace of Nanyang that suffered the most damage. He'd been told half of the golden roof had collapsed. Nanyang made sure Ling Wen would not tell you, so you were naturally unaware. Since he did not want you to know it, it would be best to continue feigning ignorance, Junwu said. Shi Lian didn't know how to feel about this. Complicated and bittersweet feelings clouded his mind, and his thoughts scattered all over the place. Finally, he only sighed soundlessly and thought, truly in this world, the words, don't tell anyone, are empty. Junwu contemplated for a moment, then asked once more, if Nanyang and Xuanzhen will not do, how about the Windmaster? Shi Lian pondered the option. Lord Windmaster is a very good person, but I don't know if she would want to go on this mission with me. The Windmaster is powerful, Junwu said, a lively person who enjoys making friends, and thus matches your first condition of easy to get along with. When reporting in with me, the Windmaster also spoke well of you. I think you two will be fine. If you do not have any other questions, then descend with the Windmaster and go forth to investigate Ghost City. Also, yes, Junwu said unhurriedly, work hard, but do not force yourself. Shi Lian was startled by those words. A moment later, he smiled. What is my lord saying? I'm not forcing myself. Junwu patted Shi Lian's shoulders. Return to the palace of Xianlei to rest for now. I will send word to summon the Windmaster. Shi Lian blinked. I don't have enough merits, so no palace has been erected. The palace of Xianlei from the past has long since been torn down, so what palace of Xianlei? I have granted you a new one, Junwu said. You cannot possibly always cram yourself into that decrepit little shrine. Shi Lian left the Palace of Divine Might and was led to the Palace of Xianlei by a junior official from Junwu's palace. You cannot possibly always cram yourself into that decrepit little shrine. That kind of strikes me, and that's the end of that one. That strikes me as, that's similar to Junwu's general, like he has that expectation of Shi Lian being like him. Like, this is hard to quantify, but it's almost like surely you can't always do this. Like, surely you can't, what are the words I'm looking for? Shit. It just feels similar to everything that he generally wants from Shi Lian. Yeah. Junwu sees him as a crown prince, and Shi Lian is basically not allowed to be anything else. Yeah. It's like the expectations he has for Shi Lian. He's like, you are a prince, therefore you couldn't possibly be humble. And just like he has that similar expectation of, you will break, like your faith, end of sentence, like will break through suffering, just like mine did. It's almost like projecting his own faults onto Shi Lian, if that makes any sense. Yeah? Yeah, and of course the fact that he calls him Xianlei, which is just one big ass reminder of his failure. Yeah. That's fucking rough. I cannot believe some of that bullshit. So we're going back to volume 1. I'm actually considering watching all of, because somebody mentioned season 2 of the Donghua and the apparently fantastic English dub for season 2. I might just watch it in English. I have to have subtitles on it anyway because I'm recording it for a reaction, so I might just watch it in English at this point if the English dub for season 2 is as good as everyone's saying it is, and everyone's saying it's good. So now we're hopping to, let's go to Nanfeng and Fu Yao's introduction on page 40. And then there's something mysterious on page 156 that I should be reading. I actually didn't get any context for that. And yeah, I also didn't clock in the first extra story. I totally did not realize that Xilian was meeting and observing the Black Water Ghost's family. I totally didn't clock that at all, which felt very silly on my part, even though that was like volumes ago. I totally didn't clock that. I feel very silly for that. And then there's also apparently one more thing for volume 1, 172. Oh, the ox cart scene. Yeah. I do wonder what that's like in hindsight as well. Yeah, I remember something about him asking about, like Huacheng and all that jazz. Yeah. Okay, so we've done that one and that one. Do page 40 for Nanfeng and Fu Yao. Real quick. Hello. Let me find it real fast. Oh, wait, hang on. I got that page right? Yeah, page 40. There is an appearance from a certain silver butterfly. There they are. Okay, and then so we'll start at the middle so that we'll get the silver butterfly description, just cause, and then from then on is the introduction to those two. So hang on. Xilian watched as the bizarre procession disappeared into the distance, and he grew deep in thought for a moment. Just as he was about to take out the scroll Ling Wen had given him to read it over once more, he suddenly sensed something dazzling flit by. When he looked up, a silver butterfly flew past his eyes. That silver butterfly was glittering and translucent, and as it fluttered through the air, it left a sparkling bright trail in its wake. Xilian reached out toward it in spite of himself. The silver butterfly was incredibly intelligent. Instead of being alarmed by the movement, it stopped on the tip of his finger. Its wings shimmered, beautiful and serene, and beneath the sunlight it felt like the illusion of a dream that would shatter with a single touch. A moment later, it flew away. Isn't this before? It is. This is legitimately like 50 pages before they meet and we find out the context for the silver butterflies. So this is a bit of foreshadowing even for volume 1. Because she just does things like that. Xilian waved at it as a farewell, and when he turned his head back around, there were 2 more people sitting at his table. There were 4 sides of this table, and those 2 each took a side, one left, one right. They were both young men of 18 or 19 years of age. The one on the left side was taller, with deep brows and handsome features, and his eyes carried a sort of unbridled wildness. The one on the right was extremely fair, elegant, and poised. His expression was a bit overly distant and cold, making him look as if he was extremely displeased. Actually, neither of them looked pleasant. Shi Lian blinked. You two are? The one on the left replied, Nan Feng. The one on the right said, Fu Yao. I wasn't asking for your names, Shi Lian thought. Just then, Ling Wen suddenly transmitted a message. Your Highness, there are 2 junior martial officials from the middle court who have volunteered to go assist you. They've already descended to find you and should be there by now. This middle court was naturally the opposite of the upper court. The heavenly officials of the heavenly realm could be crassly divided into 2 groups, those who had ascended and those who hadn't. The upper court consisted of heavenly officials who ascended on their own abilities. There were only about 100 of them in the entire heavenly realm, extremely eminent. As for the ones in the middle court, they were brought up as appointed generals. Strictly speaking, they should be addressed as peer heavenly officials, but when everyone addressed each other, they'd often take out peer in the name. One might ask, if there was an upper court and a middle court, was there a lower court? No. Actually, there had been one when Shi Lian first ascended. At the time, the division was still upper court and lower court. However, later, everyone discovered a problem. When one was introducing oneself, it sounded really bad to say, I am blank from the lower court. With the word lower, it felt like one was lower compared to the others. It must be known that there were definitely geniuses and outstanding figures with impressive spiritual power among them, and what they were missing was only that one heavenly tribulation before they could become real heavenly officials, and who knew if that day would arrive soon. Thus, it was proposed that one word be changed, and saying, I am blank from the middle court, sounded so much better, even though they both meant the same thing. In any case, after it was changed, Shi Lian couldn't get used to it for the longest time. An interesting little change, just for everyone's perceived station and perceived vanity. Although that is legitimately like a thing. People make judgments on stuff like that all the time, even though like they really shouldn't have. Like people assume, I think in America there's North Dakota and South Dakota. People assume that North Dakota is just really cold and everything that goes along with just being like a really cold climate and everything, and assume that South Dakota is all like super sunny and warm and everything, just going from north and south. And so there is some basis for that, but also it's like we're really splitting hairs when it comes to not offending heavenly officials' sensibilities. Shi Lian stared at these 2 junior martial officials, each appearing more upset than the other, not looking at all like they had come voluntarily. He couldn't help but ask, Ling Wen, they don't look like they're here to help me work, more like they're here for my good-for-nothing head. I hope they're not here because of your trickery. Unfortunately, what he said didn't seem to be transmitted, and he couldn't hear Ling Wen's voice by his ears anymore either. He figured it was because he'd been away from the heavenly capital too far and too long, and his spiritual powers were depleted. Without any choice, Shi Lian first flashed a smile at the 2 junior martial officials, then said, Nan Feng and Fu Yao, was it? Let me first thank you both for volunteering to come help. The 2 only nodded, giving quite the attitude. It seemed they must have come from the retainment of distinguished martial gods. Shi Lian told the tea master to bring 2 more cups, then he raised his own teacup and scraped the tea leaves aside as he asked casually, Which highnesses are the 2 of you from? The palace of Nanyang, replied Nan Feng. The palace of Xuanzhen, replied Fu Yao. Well, this was certainly horrifying. Hilarious. Shi Lian gulped down his mouthful of tea. Did your generals tell you to come? The 2 answered in unison. My general didn't know I was coming. Shi Lian pondered for a moment before asking again, Then do you know who I am? If these 2 junior martial officials had come in blind because of Ling Wen's deception and helped him, then they would get scolded by their own generals upon their return. It wouldn't be worth it. You're His Royal Highness the Crown Prince, Nan Feng said. You're the justice of the mortal realm, the center of the world, Fu Yao said. Shi Lian choked for a moment, then asked Nan Feng, uncertain, Did he just roll his eyes? Yes, Nan Feng replied. Tell him to beat it. It wasn't a secret that Nanyang and Xuanzhen didn't get along. When Xi Lian first heard of this, he wasn't surprised in the least, because Feng Xin and Mu Qing hadn't shared any great friendship in the past. What had kept things peaceful was that they were subordinates, so when the crown prince said, "Don't fight, you have to be good friends," everyone held back and didn't flip out. Back then, when they got really upset, they'd stab each other with words at most. But with the way things were now, faking it was no longer necessary. This was why the two heavenly officials, folk believers in the southeast and southwest, regarded each other with contempt. Throughout the years, the Palace of Nanyang and the Palace of Xuanzhen had always seen each other as enemies. The two before him now were a classic example. Holy shit, I'd forgotten that basically, like, their bullshit, that Feng Xin and Mu Qing's bullshit ran so deep that it even ran through their worshippers and subordinates. I'd forgotten that. Oh my god. That is those two, I swear. I'd be really curious about Mu Qing and Feng Xin fanfic, actually. Particularly, like, post-canon, I feel. It's like you just get everybody to, heal with that little triad, right? You finally get everybody on the same page. And then it's like, where do you go after that? If you're going for that particular arc with them. I'd be curious in some post-canon Feng Xin and Mu Qing. I believe that might be... Yeah. Yeah, and then they're like, yeah, I'm willing, and then Xi Lian can tell that actually means that they really want to kill themselves over this. Yeah, having to be in the same... Uh-huh. Ooh, at least one of them has the virginity clause in their cultivation. Oh, that is messy. No, this is really... That's really funny. Seeing that filter down to those two. After knowing what Feng Xin and Mu Qing's whole arc was. I love that really, considering it's only page 40, unless there's some other... This is like essentially the first we meet of anything in relation to Fu Qing, wow. Mu Qing and Nanfeng. So we're not even just introduced to their dynamic, we're introduced to the dynamic of their dynamic. Wow. Now, if there was something particular with them, with Nanfeng and Fu Yao, and that goes all the way back to like the early volumes, I read that a year ago. And I watched the Donghua a year ago. And I rarely have the chance to rewatch things. So if there's something about Nanyang and Fu Yao in particular, then I will not remember. I don't even really remember when we stop hearing about them. I would assume it would be like volume 2. But then who knows? There's only about 1 million people in this. No, they're not. Wait, no, yes they are. I'm so stupid. But it's like fake them. We don't even realize it's them. I'm so stupid. So on first read, it's still the vibes of it's a dynamic through a dynamic. We're still getting that on the... But no, it's also... I'm an idiot. I'm a full idiot. What's their reveal? When does that reveal even happen? If anyone's got a page on that reveal, I would love to revisit that. I really did. I thought they came in. I was remembering like they came in first and hung around for like a case or two, and then from then on out it was mooching. But no, I did totally forget that was revealed that it is them. No, that's too fucking funny. Yeah. Volume 6. Whoa, wait. We only get that reveal in book 6? Seriously? Yeah, when they're all in the spiderweb stuff. That is deeply, deeply fucked up. MXTX. Oh my god. Volume 6, page 31. Okay. Alright, so we did page 40. Since I have volume 1 here, and the only two things left from volume 1 are just like a page or like 2 pages. So we'll hop over here real quick. 156 for something. This is the mystery one. Somebody pointed me towards 156 and I was given no further context. No, you're right. That means Xilian insults Mu Qing to his face when he's talking to Fu Yao in Volume 5. I'm very, very thoroughly done with everybody here. Or 156 to 161. Yeah, that's only like 5 pages. We're at 430, 156 to 161. Is that... Oh, so just the rest of the chapter? Okay. Yeah, that's literally like 5.5 pages. All right. I have no idea why I'm reading this. It's just been pointed out to me. So, ready for anything, I guess. In the heavens, notorious was the word to describe the heavenly emperor and the crown prince of Shanlei. Although the meaning of notoriety was completely different between the two, the word still resonated equally. However, in the ghost realm, there was only one worthy of being called notorious, and that was Huacheng. They already said a lot with notorious and heavenly emperor and Shanlei. If you wanted to learn about a god, simply walk into his temple and take a look at the way he was dressed and the weapons he wielded, and you'd more or less understand him. If you wanted to know more, simply listen to folk tales, plays, and stories passed down by word of mouth. A god's mortal past and deeds were well documented. Ghosts, on the other hand, not so much. The kind of person they were while still alive, and their appearance at present were all a mystery. The name Huacheng, this is the footnote in which we learned that Huacheng means Flower City, was very obviously fake, and his appearance was most likely fake too. In the rumors, he was sometimes a twisted boy given to capricious mood changes, sometimes a gentle and mannered, handsome young man, sometimes a gorgeous seductress with a venomous heart. Anything goes. As for his true self, the only thing that one could be sure of was that he was dressed in red and often appeared alongside a bloodbath with silver butterflies flitting between his sleeves. And when it came to Huacheng's backstory, there were endless different versions. Some say he was born without a right eye and was bullied and humiliated for it since birth, so he was filled with hatred for the world. And now we know that he actually sacrificed his right eye in order to make a Ming. Some say he was a young soldier who died in a lost battle for his country and later came to walk the earth in resentment. Yeah, that one hurts. Hang on. We gotta breathe that one out. Hang on. Jesus Christ. Water. Oh. Some say he was a fool who was tormented by the death of his love. Some even say he was a monster. In the most outrageous version, only supposedly, Huacheng ascended and became a god, but immediately jumped back down on his own and became a ghost. That sounds familiar. I feel like there's some kind of truth to that, but I can't really pin it down. But yeah, it's pretty much like, yeah, we learned he ascended. I thought that sounded, yeah. That's exactly what I was about to say. This is like, oh, so like everything. There are all these crazy rumors about Huacheng. Either he did this or was that or blah, 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 or he was this or was that. When in reality, no, just all of it. She just straight up, page 156 in volume 1 just tells you. But tells you in the form of rumors say all these crazy and seemingly kind of semi-conflicting things sometimes. And then it's just all true. That is fucking classic. But that version wasn't widespread. No one knew if it was true or false, and not many believed it. It had to be false, though, right? Even if it were true, it'd be a complete embarrassment for the heavens if someone ditched a heavenly official role to become a ghost. Either way, the more diverse the stories were, the more mystery he was shrouded in. Unless, of course, it's all true. There were also many reasons for the gods to fear Huacheng. For example, his behavior was unpredictable. Sometimes he would carry out a massacre in cold blood, and sometimes he would do odd acts of kindness. He also wielded a great deal of influence in the mortal realm and had legions of followers. That's right, mortals worshipped gods to ask for blessings and protection so that they could escape the evils from the ghost realm, and that was how the gods came to gain so many followers. Yet Huacheng, a ghost, had such a large following on Earth that he could influence the world single-handedly. How did I forget that? What? He's a fucking rock star. Here is a story that must be told. When Huacheng first appeared, he did something notorious. He openly challenged 35 heavenly officials. Yeah, I remember when we got to the big Xilian taking on those, 35 heavenly officials, that whole confrontation in volume 6, I think it was, because I think 6 is the low point, right? Where the whole thing is just generally pain. I know it by the cover. Yeah. I remember people saying that, yeah, and then Huacheng essentially took out 35 heavenly officials, and gee, don't you just wonder who specifically those 35 officials were? Yeah, but so I really want to, so I'm glad you pointed this out, because I did want to read the first instance of hearing about it. So the challenge was to spar with the martial gods and to debate with the civil gods. 33 of the 35 thought it hilarious, but were also infuriated enough to take up his challenge, thinking they could join forces to teach this little devil a thing or two. The first to step up to the plate were the martial gods. The martial gods were the strongest of the heavenly officials. Each had plenty of believers, and they were all powerful. In the face of a newborn ghost, it was a sure win. Yet unexpectedly, it turned out to be a complete annihilation after one battle. Even their weapons were completely smashed to pieces by Huacheng's freakish scimitar. A Ming for the win, once again. It was only after the battle that they found out that Huacheng was born of Mount Tonglu. The first download about Mount Tonglu as well? Mount Tonglu was a volcano, and within its mountainous domain there was a city called Gu. The city of Gu wasn't a place where people cultivated poison, but rather the city itself was a great venom. Every few hundred years, tens of thousands of ghosts descended upon the city of Gu to butcher one another until at last only one remained, and thus was the venom brewed. It usually ended in complete elimination, but those few who were capable enough to make it out alive would emerge as the devil incarnate. Only 2 such ghosts had ever made it out of the city of Gu in the past several centuries, and as expected, those 2 both became well-known ghost kings. Huacheng was one. Right. This isn't on the nose exactly what we learn about becoming a ghost king later, but it's pretty much it. Why didn't they challenge him to calligraphy? No, that's a good one. After the defeat of the martial gods, it came time for the civil gods to rise to the challenge. Surely Huacheng could fight, but not debate. He can't do both. That would be crazy. Unfortunately for the civil gods, they could not defeat him. Huacheng could recite the classics and debate the contemporaries. He was sometimes polite, sometimes vicious, sometimes unyielding, sometimes incisive, and sometimes quibbling. He was impenetrably sharp, his arguments flawless. He verbally abused the civil gods from top to bottom, past to present, and infuriated them so much that they puked blood and washed the skies red. Huacheng gained fame overnight. I'm on my back with my legs in the air. Like, is it just me? It's not just, all right. It's not just that he is apparently a quintessential, debate champion, all right? That's hot enough. I love Aaron Sorkin shows for a reason, all right? Anyone who can debate and form an argument really well, I'm already there. But then he has to go and be both. He has to go and also have, all the martial prowess in the world and also be able to beat your ass and have that aspect going for him. He's both. He's both. This was really... It was never not gonna be... I never stood a chance. I never stood a single fucking chance when it comes to Huacheng. Not even remotely. However, that alone wasn't enough to call him scary. What was scary was that after the challenge, Huacheng demanded all 33 officials make good on their word. Before the challenge, it was decided that if Huacheng were to lose, he would offer up his own ashes. If the officials were to lose, they must descend from the heavens and return to being mortals. If it weren't for his arrogant attitude and his decisive stake, and the conviction of the 33 officials that they would not lose, they never would have accepted such terms. However, not a single heavenly official voluntarily honored the terms. It was humiliating to renege on their bet, but when they thought about it, if only one of them was defeated, it'd be an embarrassment. But if all of them were defeated and humiliated, then no one would lose face. They could even turn around and mock the other party. So they all came to a tacit understanding that they'd pretend nothing had happened. Mortals were forgetful anyway. They would forget all about this in 50 years or so. They were not wrong about the mortals, but they were wrong about Huacheng. Okay, so now, not only did they fuck with Xilian, now they have been resoundingly beaten and have reneged on their bet. The gods refused to fulfill their promise. That was fine. He would give them a hand. Thus, Huacheng burned every single temple and shrine of all 33 gods. This was the stuff of nightmares for all the gods in the heavens. The red-clad ghosts burning of the 33 martial and civil gods' temples. Temples and followers were the main source of power for heavenly officials. Where would followers go to pray if there were no temples? If they didn't pray, there wouldn't be merits. The massive loss of temples and merits greatly injured the heavens. To rebuild would take at least 100 years, and even then they wouldn't be the same as before. This was a catastrophe greater than failing and transcending tribulations. The number of temples and shrines of these heavenly officials combined was at least in the tens of thousands, but Huacheng managed to burn them all in a single night. How? No one knew, but he did it. Pure madness. The gods cried foul to the heavenly emperor, but there was nothing he could do. The heavenly officials themselves accepted the challenge and the terms, and Huacheng was cunning enough to only destroy temples without hurting anyone. It was as if he dug a hole and asked the gods to jump, and the gods themselves dug the hole bigger and dove in. With the way things were, what more could they have done? At first, the 33 heavenly officials had wanted to show the world the defeat of this crazed little devil, so they broadcast the challenge into the dreams of many royals and nobles to display their strength and might before their most devout believers. But all the royals and nobles saw was their miserable defeat. When the mortals woke up, they switched from worshipping heavenly officials to worshipping that ghost. The heavenly officials who lost their temples and believers soon grew weaker and weaker until they were erased from existence. It wasn't until a new wave of ascensions that those empty positions were filled again. Ever since then, the name Huacheng was feared in the heavens. Even just hearing a mention of red robes or silver butterflies brought cold sweat to many. Some feared he would challenge them and burn their temples if they were to incur his displeasure. Some were blackmailed into silence and inaction because he had them by the balls, and some even oddly respected him because of how wide his reach was in the mortal realm. Sometimes they even had to ask him for help paving the way for them while they carried out their duties. This went on for a long time, and many heavenly officials developed a peculiar sort of admiration for him. Thus, the heavens feared, hated, and respected this ghost king. Among the 35 gods who were challenged, the two who declined were General Xuanzhen, Mu Qing, and General Nanyang, Feng Xin. They thought the challenge was beneath them and didn't care to take it. Turned out that was the right decision to make. But even then, Huacheng hadn't forgotten about those two. Many Zhongyuan festival patrols ended in fists and blood when both parties crossed paths with each other, and those crazy, maniacal silver butterflies left an everlasting impression on both men. Hearing this, Xilian thought of that fluttering silver butterfly that sparkled and danced adorably around him in delight. He couldn't picture it as described in the rumors. Was that little silver butterfly really that scary? Xilian wondered. It wasn't that bad. It was kind of cute. I can't take it. I can't take it. I can't take much more. I can't fucking take it. How often does she do that? How often does she give you... Pardon me. How often does she give you an action and then sometimes way later give you the explanation for that action? Like, we don't, and in the best way, because we don't wonder really why he challenged those 33 officials. She doesn't linger on that. She doesn't harp on, I don't think, in that passage. She didn't harp on, like, who knows why or anything like that. But even if she did, it's like we pass right over it. And then she drops in several volumes later, BT dubs, there were 33 officials that severely fucked with Xilian at the worst possible time. Whew. Jesus, God in heaven. Okay. Motherfuck. We did that. That was a whole ass download. In volume 1, that was a whole ass download about, like, Huachang. And we didn't even know that it was specifically because he knew that those 33 officials were some bullshit. That's a really good technique, actually. That's a really good kind of little, like, trick to steal. Providing an action and then later providing a motive for that action that you had not considered because you were just shown a thing. Yeah. No. Bonkers. The ox cart scene. What is it? 172? Oh, yeah, because we have that art from it. I think, if I remember correctly, I went back and watched the ox cart scene in the Donghua kind of recently. Did I? I think I did. I can't exactly remember why, but that was before a lot of stuff happened. That was before I got to a lot of things in the volumes. So let me see how this is recontextualized. But, hang on. I think it's actually a little bit back on 171. Or at least at the very tail end of it. Shilian continued, "My friend, you look young, but you know a lot." The youth replied, "No, just bored. I read whatever when I'm free, that's all." In the mortal realm, it was easy to find books on lore that spoke of the stories of gods and ghosts, the subjects ranging from their kindnesses and grudges to trivialities. Some were real and some were fake. It wasn't odd that the youth knew so much. Shilian put down his scroll. "Then, my friend, you know about gods, but do you know about ghosts too?" "Which ghosts?" the youth asked. Shilian replied, "Crimson Rainsalt Flower, Huachang." Yeah, this was a really good, this was a big moment where you were like, does Shilian suspect that this is Huachang? Do I suspect that this is Huachang? This kind of has to be Huachang, right? You're kind of like, does he? Did he, like, clock it right from the get-go? Like, yeah, this was the start of the whole big question of who knows what about who that goes through the entire volume. That's so good. The youth chuckled and finally sat up when he heard that name. He turned around and Shilian's eyes suddenly lit up. The youth was about 16 or 17 years old. His tunic was redder than maple leaves, and his skin was white like snow. With eyes as bright as stars, he looked askance at him with a smile. He was exceptionally handsome, but there was an inexplicable hint of wildness in his looks. His hair was tied in a loose ponytail, crooked and carefree. The cart was driving through the forest of flaming red maples where maple leaves danced their way to the ground. A leaf playfully landed on the shoulder of the youth, and he blew it off softly, then looked up at Shilian, speaking with the shadow of a smile. "Oh, excuse me, I should be..." "What do you want to know? Ask away." He looked teasing, yet somehow possessed the perfect composure of omniscience. Though he sounded youthful, his voice was deeper than was typical for his age, and was pleasant to the ears. Sitting upright on the cart, Shilian watched him thoughtfully for a moment, then said, "Crimson Rainsalt Flower evokes quite the imagery. Do you know where it came from, my friend?" Out of respect, Shilian didn't say "my little friend." The youth sat up casually, propped an arm up on a raised knee, and fixed his sleeves. He replied, unconcerned, "Nothing major, really. Just that there was once an incident where he cleaned out the nest of another ghost, and a shower of blood rain poured down from the skies. He saw a flower was getting battered by the bloody rain, so he tilted his umbrella and shielded it." I don't know. I don't know anymore. I don't know. I don't know. I don't I don't know. I don't know. I don't know, guys. I don't know. I, I'm just at a loss for words. Why would they, and that is obviously teasing as hell because, it just goes right back to their meet cute. But then it also speaks to the greater metaphor about why, narratively speaking, they met, their meet cute was the way it was anyway. It's the metaphor. It's the metaphor. Oh my god. Oh my god. Where the fuck was I? Ooh, I think I just hit the mic. My bad. Shilian pictured it in his head, imagining such an act of elegance under the rancid shower. He then thought about the burning of those 33 temples and laughed. Does Huachong pick fights often? The youth answered, not often. Depends on his mood. What was he like before his death? Shilian asked. Definitely not a good person, the youth replied. What does he look like? The youth raised his eyes to look at him when he heard the question, tilted his head, and stood up before sitting down next to Shilian. What do you think he looks like? He turned the question on Shilian. Seeing the youth up close, I love how it's, what do you think he looks like? I'm right up here looking you dead in the eyes. Seeing the youth up close, Shilian thought he was too handsome for words, but his beauty was deadly like a sword, sharp and mesmerizing, making it hard to stare head on. Shilian only met his eye for a moment, then lowered his eyes in defeat. He turned his head slightly and continued to ask, if Huachong is a big-shot ghost, I'm sure he has many forms, and changes often. Yeah, and we know Shilian's not an idiot. And yet I love that there was still enough doubt for that to be a thing throughout the first volume of does he know now and all that jazz. Yeah. This is ridiculous. This is patently ridiculous. The youth arched his brows at Shilian, turning away, and replied, yeah, but there are still times when he would use his real face. Of course, we're talking about his true form. It might have been his imagination, but Shilian thought the distance between the two of them seemed to be a little wide. So he turned his face back around. Then I feel his true form is probably a youth like you. The youth lifted his lips slightly. Why do you say that? Shilian replied, no reason. You say whatever, and I think whatever. Everything is whatever, that's all. Oh my god. The youth laughed. Who knows? But he's blind in one eye. He pointed to his right eye. This one. That was nothing outrageous. Shilian recalled one of the many backstory versions where Huachong wore a black eye patch to hide that missing eye and asked, do you know what happened to his eye? That's a question everyone wants the answer to, the youth replied. And the fact that it went to a Ming, it was the Queen Ming, my baby, I'm fine, I'm okay. Others asked because they wanted to know what Huachong's weakness was, but Shilian asked purely out of curiosity. He didn't say anything, and the youth continued, he dug it out himself. Shilian was taken aback. Why? A moment of madness, the youth answered. Oh, shit. Oh, shit. What was the specific moment? There are so many details. What was the specific moment in which he created a Ming? I know it. It's right there. But we've been bouncing around. so much today. Um, yeah, in Tonglu. Yeah, saving humans in Mount Tonglu. A moment of madness in which, yeah, he was cornered with a bunch of people on Mount Tonglu. Thank you. Yes, yes, yes. And there was no other. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Shit. He could dig out his own eye when struck by madness. Shilian was now more curious than ever about this Crimson Ghost King. It couldn't have been something as simple as a moment of madness, but there were probably no more details about that story. You know, it's hilarious how it couldn't have been something as simple as a moment of madness, but there were probably no more details to that story. It's hilarious how right he is in the first half of this sentence and how wrong he is in the second half of the sentence. That's amazing. Shilian pressed on. Does Huachang have any kind of weakness? He wasn't expecting the youth to have the answer. It was just a casual question. If Huachang's weakness was so easily known, then whatever the rumored weakness was couldn't possibly be true. But the youth answered immediately. His ashes. If one got hold of a ghost's ashes, one could take command of said ghost. If the ghost disobeyed, then by getting rid of the ashes, the ghost would dissolve and its soul disintegrate. This was common knowledge, but using it on Huachang seemed fruitless. Shilian smiled. There's probably no one who can obtain his ashes, so that weakness is the same as having no weakness. You never know. You never know, the youth said. There are circumstances where a ghost would voluntarily give away his ashes. Like, I don't know, in a ring or something? Like the bet he had with those 33 heavenly officials? Yeah, right, the youth scoffed. I just... You know what she had to have done? And I don't understand. I don't understand how one does this. Or like how you do this. But like, she would have had to have the end, or at least the ending revolutions. For lack of a better, she would have had to have had everything already mapped out and known to such a detailed extent that she could then, when writing the beginning, right? When writing the first, I'll say, 3-4 volumes. It's like everything from volume, I think 4. 4? Really 3. But yeah, I think everything from volume 4 on. So like these first 3 volumes had to have been entirely dependent on details from the rest of it. So what did she do? Write the second half first and then go back and write the first half? Unless she's a discovery writer. If this bitch is a discovery writer, then I'm officially terrified of her. Because she would have had to have like written the whole thing and then gone back and made it like refined it and made it look like she did everything on purpose and take details from the end and allude to them in the beginning that way, right? I'm just trying to figure out how the hell she does this. What method she goes about. Whether it's outlining or discovery. She's concerning. One second. Since we're a little past 5. Let me see when this. Ba-da-ba. They just go ahead and say it. Hang on. Okay, so he didn't need to say the words for Shilian to understand that he meant there was no way Huachang would have lost. He continued. There's a custom in the ghost realm where if a ghost has a special someone, they entrust their ashes to that person. And like, I'm fine. That was akin to handing over one's life to another person. Such passion. What a charming tale. What a charming... This is what we're ending on. Such passion. What a charming tale that would be. What a charming tale that would be. The story of a ghost handing over their to somebody. That would be just like a charming tale, wouldn't it? Just a nice little story there. Uh-huh. I didn't know the ghost realm had such a romantic practice. They do, the youth said, but not many dare to practice it. I'm done. I'm so fucking done. I'm so far beyond anything. I don't even... Shilian sighed. It certainly is painful to think about, to have given everything for love and lose everything in return. The youth laughed out loud. What's there to be afraid of? If it were me, I'd have no regrets giving away my ashes. Who cares if they want me to disintegrate or just scatter the ashes for fun? Shilian grinned, then suddenly realized that they still didn't know each other's names, despite having chatted for so long. My friend, what's your name? The youth raised one hand over his forehead to block out the rays of the blood-red sunset and squinted his eyes as if loathing the sun. The blood-red sunset. Me? I'm third in my family. They call me Sen Lung. He didn't say his full name, and it wasn't Shilian's place to ask. My family name is Shi. Given name is Lian. Are you heading to Puchi Village too? Sen Lung lay back into the hay, put his arms behind his head, and crossed his legs. Dunno. I've no destination in mind. It sounded as if there was a story to his words, so Shilian gently asked, What's the matter? Sen Lung sighed. My parents were quarreling and kicked me out. I walked for a long time, but had nowhere to go. I almost passed out from hunger on the streets, before finding somewhere at random to lie down. That's true, though. That's true. Okay. The clothes on the boy's back looked casual, but the material was of high quality. With the knowledgeable way he spoke and how carefree he appeared, Shilian had long since he thought he was a boy from a wealthy family. It must be quite difficult for a respectable young man to wander so long on his own. Shilian understood that feeling. 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 Shilian gets that feeling. He understands. Hearing he was hungry, Shilian searched through his sack, but only found a small steamed bun. Good thing it hadn't turned hard yet. You want it? The youth nodded, and Shilian gave him the bun. Sen Lung took a look at Shilian. What about you? I'm all right. Not hungry yet, Shilian replied. There's that footnote earlier on about Sen Lung meaning third youth. It's common for peasants to name their children in numbers, while those of higher status would use the same naming conventions for familiar nicknames. Lung means man, but also becomes a term of endearment when attached to a name. It is used by women to address their husbands or lovers, akin to dear. Of course it is. Fucking course. Sen Lung pushed the button back. Then I'm all right, too. Shi Lian looked at him, then split the bun in half and gave him half. You can have half, and I'll have the other half. Seeing this, Senlong accepted the steamed bun and started munching. Watching him sit and eat a simple bun obediently, Shi Lian felt like he was abusing the boy. The ox cart drove slowly over the rugged hills. Just to hang or to mature and intelligent. Shouldn't put you sure there's plenty of water. Which god is it for? The Prince of Shenlei. You probably don't know him. Hang on. This will really be the note that we end on. The ox cart drove slowly over the rugged hills as the sun gradually set and the two chatted in the back. The more they spoke, the more Shi Lian thought Senlong to be an extraordinary youth. At such a young age, his diction and behavior were already mature and intelligent, calm and collected, as if there was nothing in this world he didn't know, and nothing could stump him. Shi Lian thought he was wise beyond his years, but sometimes he would still reveal the folly of youth. Shi Lian said he was the shrine master of Puchi Shrine, and Senlong asked, Puchi Shrine? Sounds like there are plenty of water chestnuts to eat. I like them. Which god is it for? Having been asked that troublesome question again, Shi Lian cleared his throat and said, The Prince of Shenlei. You probably don't know him. Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. What was I looking for? Right. We're going to glance at names. Because that's fucking enough of that. Prince of Shenlei. Who's the Prince of Shenlei? Senlong wouldn't know anything about him. Uh-huh. Okay. Shi Lian means thanks/wilt and sympathy/love. His heavenly title is Shenlei, Heaven's Delight. The prince who pleased God. For Jesus. Huachang is, flower city. Sanlong, third youth. Crimson Rain sought flower, Feng is wind and trust/faith. Jun Wu is Lord and I. Dear God. Ling Wen, ingenious literatus. Oh my god. Holy crap. Woo. Mooching, yearning and affection. I remember that. Yeah. Heavenly title meaning enigmatic truth. Pei Ming. Tender tea leaves. Heavenly title bright illumination. Yeah. Chuan Yi Zhen, power/authority, one, truth and genuine. Heavenly title, stupendous hero, Qing. Rainmaster, Shi Chuan. Beijing was white brocade. Benyue is half moon. So is mistake. As in, like, a childish term. Like, whoops. Oh. Hechuan, congratulate. Black, mysterious. Really? Como, millstone. Lanchang, gladiolus. Lang Ying, youth, firefly. Qirong, face of sorrow, or relative, or tolerate slash face. Rongguang. White no face is just white no face. Xuanji, declare, proclaim, an archaic form of concubine. Lang Ying's youth and hero. Yeah. Aming. I'd forgotten that Aming means terrible and wretched and fate. Ugh. Feng Xin means affections of a young woman? What? Yeah, let me introduce you to my child. Oops. Yeah. Royer. Like slash as if. Evil or sword. Man, they're just not doing my son's justice. Kingdom of Shenlei. Heavenly music. Oh. Puchi Village. Water chestnut. Makes sense from the assumption that Huacheng just made. That the Puchi Shrine would have water chestnuts. Kingdom of Wuyang. Crow slash black. Mediocre slash ordinary slash to hire. Okay. Yeah, the sword Feng Xin. That's what I meant. Kingdom of Yang'an. Eternal peace. Oh, shit. Oh, and then there's like actual, names, honorifics, and title guides and pronunciations and all that jazz. And like a glossary and stuff. So that was a very quick glance, obviously, through names and the name meanings. Oh, the characters in Mei Nanqing's name can also be read as missing you. A term of endearment for spouses or close friends. Whew. Oh, God, I'm officially running late. Okay, see, what did I say? This stream could be half an hour, it could be an hour, who knows? And now I'm, like, running over time. Okay. Holy crap. Yeah, you do kind of need more than one session to obviously go over everything. But I love that you guys have different things for me to, like, reread in hindsight, even though I blatantly missed the Fu Yao, etc. So, at least beginning to get our heads wrapped around exactly everything that MXTX did here in terms of illusions, etc. I don't know what I'll do on a reread. Maybe it'll just be as simple as, like, I'll live blog it on the Tumblr, and I'm assuming that this reread isn't going to happen for a while. Like, I would say probably, like, next summer, like, at the earliest, just because it's such a big time commitment, right, to reading all of this. It's a big series. And you need time to let it all fester. Plus, the Donghua happens between then and now, anywho. But when I do, I will do something, even if it's just a live blog, over on the Tumblr as I go through, because I can only imagine, this scratches the surface of the way that everything is interwoven with each other, even to such a detailed extent. And yeah, even down to Hechuan helping Shi Qingxuan at the human array. Yeah, that's a thing. Like, that you could write an essay about that alone. You see what I mean? Whole ass essay. And I'm sure somebody has, because that's a popular ship. That would be another one I'd be open to fanfic of, actually. That has some really interesting things going on. So, if anything, this will at least be a nice little intro primer to getting everybody started off on trying to absorb what the hell this series is all about. So now, that is it for the reading streams for the rest of the year. All the rest of 2 weeks, right? And when we come back, actually, 2 things. When we come back with Save System, we come back, hang on, let me check my schedule here. I do want to give you an official start date for Save System. We start Save System because I hyper-focused the other day and I figured it all out. I have reading streams scheduled through Pride of next year, I believe. If not, May. So we start Save System January 8th is when we start Volume 1 of Save System. And here's the thing. We are used to doing 2 streams a week until we finish a volume. That has changed. Starting next year, reading streams will be 3 times a week. There is so much to read and so little time, and it takes so long just to get through 1 volume, and I love doing it so much that I figured it is best for all involved if we pick up the pace a little bit. And it's not like I have to do any editing with it because it's a live stream. And so really, why not? Let's do it 3 times a week. So it'll be Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, because January 8th is a Monday. And then there won't be much in the ways of breaks between volumes either. If a volume finishes during a week, then we'll just take the rest of that week off, but then we'll pick up with the next volume the following week. Like, we'll pick up kind of right where we left off. As opposed to, in the past, there used to be a little bit of a buffer in between of like at least a week or so. Nah. There's too much to read, and I'm too excited to read it, and you guys are too excited to read it. And how am I supposed to get through, Guardian, Urha, Stars of Chaos, Thousand Autumns, to say nothing of Save System, right? There is just so much. So we are going to be doing so much. So those are the 2 big things. We start Save System January 8th, and the reading streams will be 3 times a week. Same amount of time, 2 hours, roughly 3 to 5, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Other than that, I'm super fucking late, so I'm going. I hope you guys had fun. I hope this at least made sense to you a little bit. We just sat down and had a good time. I'm sure you guys figured out so much in the chat. I'll have to go back and run through and see all the conversation you guys were having, because I was able to clock some of it. And, holy shit, I will see you in January also for season 2 of the Donghua. And this is obviously with the Donghua and the audio drama and everything and rereads and whatnot. I am definitely part of the fandom. I'm not really going anywhere. Right? So even though the first time, the blessed first time experiencing the story has come to an end, there are now other versions and more rereads and refathomings to get to. So now I can actually become part of the fandom and look at fan art and fanfic and all this shit. I get to join the fandom now. So now is when there's just more to do, not less. So thank you so much for coming along. I will see you guys in January for Save System starting on the 8th. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, week? Rest of your day, afternoon, evening, morning, what have you. And I will see you guys in January. All right? Have a wonderful, wonderful new year. I love you very, 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 very much.